What's going on, guys? In Google, great. So I got the spark plug wires, or I should say Andrea put these on this morning. I think they're right now. Hans had them backwards. Yeah, I got a few more things on this one. I'm going to button this up today. Got some clamps to put on it, EGR tube. I got to go underneath and hook the exhaust up, hook the converter up, and this one will be ready to fire up. I'll put this K&N filter on it and throw the fans in there. So I was driving the Titan last night on the interstate. When I got off the interstate, it was knocking. Knock, 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 knock. I thought I killed the motor, or the converter came loose. I'll fire it up so you guys can hear this awful noise. I narrowed it down to an unusual thing though. I'll fire up. So we got excellent oil pressure. Everything's good. I actually put a gauge in it because this is a sender, you know. And it's got 60 pounds at an idle and almost 80 going down the road. But I had this awful noise here. I'll show you an old school trick I learned a long time ago. Old mechanic trick. You can use a stethoscope for this. But I probably should have done this before I dumped all the oil out. I changed the Earl because I thought maybe that was it. But if you're trying to find a noise, you can take a screwdriver like this, pry bar, stick it on the oil pan, transmission, put your ear up to it, and you can hear the motor is completely smooth. And I did that all over the motor, went and did a tranny, and it's this catalytic converter. Something's broken loose inside of it now and it's rattling around in there. So time to do an exhaust system. I haven't done the exhaust on this yet. And kind of pull those off. Do something there. Can't stand that noise. I don't know if it's the O2 sensor. I don't think it's that because I don't have any codes. So I think it's just the goodie busted loose in the converter there. And I do believe that's part of the exhaust manifold on this car. So you have to buy the whole exhaust manifold catalytic converter combination thing. So we'll probably go with a set of headers. And probably just knock that stuff out of there for right now. And hope it doesn't mess with my O2 sensor too bad. But I can't handle that knock. That's terrible. Well, I'm glad it wasn't the motor. Ugh. Hans's piece out here, we're going to push this around back today because he's not motivated enough. So we're going to put it out back and you can just drive the Volkswagen until he gets tired of that. I was going to buy a motor for that from Katie Robinson, found a 2JZ, and Hans changed his mind. He wants to try to buy a car instead. A Nissan. Let me turn this radio off so I don't get in trouble here. Show you guys a few things. But anyway, got the race car sitting in here clean, half clean. I got to finish up these K-drons. Going to mix up a little JV weld and put on the bottom of this carburetor so we can start it up. Ken found another carburetor body. I have to determine which one it is. I didn't mark it, and when I cleaned them, you know, they look the same now. But there's a left and a right on these, so I need to figure out if it's the left one or the right one. I got the linkage arms put on these to tighten the throttle shafts up. They were a little loose. The other linkage arms weren't tight on there. So we got that straightened out. We got these all rebuilt. We got a little JB weld for the bottom of the bowl. I'm thinking that's the one right there. Not sure, looks like a little speck right there. So we'll throw some on that. I got some marine formula. I'm not gonna leave it like that. It's gonna leave with a used carburetor body. We don't want to fire on this brand new pretty motor. So I got to put the drive gear in this, bolt the fuel pump on it today, get this buttoned up. Got one broken bolt to deal with. I got to drill out and fix that. And that one will be ready to go. Build the sheet metal and the generator for it. I got the new fan and we should be ready to go. I checked on these heads, talked to the guy I bought these from, and he doesn't know if he can warranty these or not. He said that it's been a while, and it has been a while. It's been a while since I bought these heads. I bought them a while ago, and just continue to find stuff wrong with them. Went on some forums, and apparently these Chinese castings didn't make it in the OEM world. They kept failing in the stock world, and this Steve Timms guy took it upon himself to buy a bunch of these cores and stick it in everybody's ass for $800 with these heads. If it's not going to work in a stock situation, it damn sure isn't going to work at 8,000 RPM at 200 horsepower or 170. You know what I mean? You don't take something that's not going to work in the stock world and then modify it for the high performance world. But I might be stuck with these, and if I am, I'll change where I buy my parts from, and it'll sour a relationship for sure, because I don't like getting taken advantage of like that. All these valve stem heights are different, and maybe not so critical for the novice guy, but when you're trying to get the rocker arm geometry correct, you have to have the correct size push rods, and I would have to have 2 different lengths push rods to make this work, and that's not going to give me the correct rocker arm geometry. You know, it'd be close on the exhaust or the intake, or vice versa. You can't have it both ways. So yeah, that's a problem. The other problem with these heads is the guides and the seats are falling out. On the forums, they're talking about it. People that have bought these are having a real bad time with them. Apparently the aluminum alloy is no good. The other thing is the construction of the head's pretty poor. If you look back here in the back, you can see the head bolt holes here. There's no support under there, and the deck is super thin. They've made that super thin there. They took all the support out of the back of the port, so when you torque these 2 center bolts, the head collapses in the center there. The other problem is these heads aren't connected on the sides. They have no boss around the head bolts. The retainers don't fit the springs. You can see how the retainer is partially covering the spring. That's not the right spring and retainer combination. Close, but not right. Not what you send out the door for $800. The other problem is these heads were supposed to be manufactured on the CB Performance castings, is what I was told, and this is not a CB Performance casting. I found out that those are made in the US of A in New York and machined at CB Performance, and this is a China head. You can see here there's very little gasket surface left because they went through and they ported it and they just welded it up, didn't surface the intake surface, so this is sunk in right here, and that's going to be an intake leak right there where they welded it. Zzz, it sunk the port in there. What you'd have to do is weld this completely and then machine that flat again, and they didn't do that. This casting is definitely smaller than the 043 casting I guess they were using, and they didn't change their CNC program, so when the port's the head, it goes right through the port, so they have to weld these heads, and that's not cool either. So these again are Steve Timms heads. Stay away from that guy. This is the kind of shit he's putting out there. I think that he you know, if you bend over real far and spread your cheeks for another $700 or $800, he'll give you a set of Volkswagen castings welded up, and I think those are the real heads, and these are the shit heads that they sell for the numbers. You know, I don't know. I don't do business that way. If somebody's not happy with something, I'm not happy with it. And as much parts as I bought in the last 2 or 3 years, I think that they should make these heads good. And if they don't, I'll continue to bitch about them, and I'll get more involved in them. And I would put them on a motor and let them blow up. But the problem is you know, I've got $1,500 in the crankshaft for the motor. I've got $950 in the case. I got $800 in a set of Potter rods, and I got $400 in a set of Mahle piston cylinders for it. Another $1,000 worth of rocker arms. Let's see, $1,600 worth of carburetors. Another $120 for the coated lifters. You know, the full flow pumps, another $100. So you're looking at close to $9,000 worth of parts that I'm just gonna put these heads on there and have the shit fall apart and go down in the engine. I don't think so. I'm not that stupid. So, and I can't put these on that motor and sell it with a clear conscience, because I know that people are going to have problems with these. The seats are going to be moving around, the guides are going to be coming out, and then everybody will think that I'm building a shitty motor. And it comes back to having decent parts, you know. You got to have good parts, especially in the realm that we're going to run this. I mean, look at the difference right here in the valve stem tip on this one compared to this one. See how sunk that is in the retainer? See how that one's sticking out? See how far this one's sticking out? Holy moly, look at how long that one is. These are a good 50 thousandths longer than the intake. Well, this one, and this one's probably 100 thousandths shorter. So when you put a straight edge across there, all the tips are different. And you gotta have all your tips the same, or your geometry is gonna be off from valve to valve to valve. You'll have to have, you know, 4 different link push rods. And that's hokey. We don't do that kind of stuff here. And I don't know if they do that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't even sell this shit, you know, personally. I think the best thing for both parties at hand is to take these back and send them back to the manufacturer that's selling this junk. It's flooding the market with more garbage. This is what happens with the Volkswagen industry. You know, somebody spends good money on a set of cylinder heads, they're brand new. I mean, why wouldn't you expect them to be good for the $800 price tag that they get for them? They're not worth the box they come in, you know, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a bad investment, and I should have known better. But I buy parts from, you know, I try to buy parts from one person, and the reason I do that is because I buy a lot of stuff, and I feel like if I have an issue, I have more of a chance of that person, you know, making good on it for me, you know. I mean, you know, when I buy like this motor here, you know, we went down there and we spent, you know, close to $1,500 worth of parts just on this one, and you know, built 7 or 8 since I've been doing YouTube videos. I build motors pretty regular, and I get all my parts from this one supplier. So it makes me very leery to deal with a supplier when I have an issue that I can't take the parts back. And I realized that you know, they've been sitting here for a while, but that's how it is. You know, you buy parts, you put them in stock, and you gather the pieces as you get them. And when you accumulate all the pieces, you break everything out and you build the motor. And that's what happened here. You know, I sort of looked at these in a hurry, and when I took them down the scooters, he's like, wow, man, you know, these are the heads that Roger Crawford's building his PC4s on. He did 10 sets, and he got all 10 sets back. And he's an honest enough man where he'll tell you, hey, they're junk. I had to take every set that I sold back. And that's where I'm at with this set. So I'll either get my money back, we'll buy some Wedgeport CB Performance with the LS springs and the titanium valves. They're about $1,200, and they'll be a step up from this, and it'll get us where we need to be for the quality. But definitely can't run that head on that 2110. It's just not going to happen. I'm not even going to try it, and I'm not going to let a parts guy that doesn't build motors talk me into putting an inferior part on something that I built and to have it fail. It's not going to happen. So anyway, you can hear the rattle, rattle, rattle. Let's shut this off, and we'll fix this. I'll pull the exhaust off and get that fixed. Took it down and cleaned it this morning, scrubbed it all up. It was really dirty. Cleaned all my door jams. Pressure washed the bottom of the truck. I need to clean the scrap metal and the old fence out of the back of it today. But yeah, so that was my rant. I ranted a little bit, and I'm gonna rant more if they don't take these heads back. It'll get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, until every man on the planet knows that this place sucks and you shouldn't do business with them. So I'm not naming any names yet. I will tell you that Steve Thames built these heads, and he should be ashamed of himself. I heard that he's going blind and his son's taking over the business, and God, you know, my son was doing shit like this, I'd want to be blind too. So yeah, really poor quality. It's the way of the today. You know, you take a good quality name and you just beat the shit out of it and run it in the ground. You know, you take a man that had a good reputation for building cylinder heads and super street class, and you know, if you go on the Samba, it's really impressive if you go to their site. They sound really good. And they have a super sales pitch on these about how they run cooler and the alloy of the metal so superior to the OEM castings, and oh, it sounds so good. But the point of it is that these things are failing. People are getting them back. You can go on forums, and you know, every customer can't be wrong. And you know, the more I look at it, the less I'm wanting to use it. Well, I can't use it, you know. Like I said, you know, this is my head be okay head. If you have maybe a brand new aluminum case with an empty crank in it and some empty rods, and you know, you might have like $3,000 in the whole setup. But when you start paying you know, $1,500 for a crankshaft and $800 for a set of connecting rods and $400 for piston cylinders, you don't want to put something on that you know is going to fail. I don't know what that big boom was. Sounded like a transformer blowing up. Anyway, let me shut this off. I need to climb down off the soapbox and move some stuff around. I'm gonna work on this Honda today. I get some Bondo and primer on this and make that bad boy leave. Trying to get rid of some stuff. Got some stuff coming up in the next couple weeks that's gonna take all my time and maybe take me away from here. So I'm trying to get this stuff out. I've warned people that they need to get their cars out of here. I went down to Tall Scooter, and he's cleaning his shop up. Apparently he sold his house there next to my parents, and he's having to bring 4 cars from there to his shop. And I told him that he'd have to make room for this, because this is going back down there. I'm not leaving with this car in my garage. I don't want to be responsible for stuff when I'm not here. So, and then I have this convertible too. We need to decide what we're going to do with this. He's got so many cars, he doesn't even have anywhere to put this if I did give it back to him. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to go on with this. I really need to sit down and have a come to Jesus meeting, as Jake and Al says, with him, and find out what his intentions are, and see if we can get a timeline and, you know, something ironed out. You gotta have a game plan, or you just run around in the field, you know. And I do that a lot, because a lot of times people come here with no game plan, and you know, because it's a nice place to store your car, you know. Why would you have a game plan? But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this off, try to get this day moving, and move some of this stuff around, work on my Chrysler, work on the Honda, and I feel better now that I know what's wrong with the Titan. I got to get Ken's motor finished up. He's wanting to pick this up next weekend. He wanted to get it this weekend, but I really don't want to let it go with that carburetor. And the car's not done, so there's no big deadline, you know what I mean? I know he wants it finished, but it needs to be right. I think doing it right is much more important than rushing it, especially a motor this nice. So a few more little things on here, and we'll get it shut down and get it out of here. It's another one that's got to go. But anyway, sort of a gloomy day in Florida today. Hope the race goes good. They're expecting some rain. We got some serious rain last night, but hopefully they'll get it off. But let me shut this off and move some stuff around, and I'll turn you guys back on. Maybe I'll do some Bondo and primering videos. I know there's some guys doing some priming in the garage, or getting ready to do some priming, and we're going to do some priming on this. We're going to go with etch primer on this one. We're going to etch it, and then we're going to go right to the high build no epoxy primer. I'm not a big fan of the epoxy, and the matrix epoxy, you know, requires a 30-minute induction time, and it also requires the metal to be etched prior to applying the epoxy primer. So there's not a lot of value in the epoxy primer, and I know that a lot of guys out there have said that their primers are formulated to go over bare steel, but nobody's actually showed me the P sheet yet. And I know that some of the guys are gambling out there, because I've seen the P sheets, especially for the PPG product, and it doesn't go over bare steel. And I've been making a point. I got that what is it, vwdarrin Garage Times, you know, a little playlist thing you can go in there. And every time I find a body shop, there's a couple of them in there, body shops, West Coast Customs, I think, and Lanzini's, who's in California. They do a lot of stuff for oh, what's that show? Chip Foose does that show there, you know, where they fix your car up and give it to you. Lanzini paints a lot of his stuff. It's a Diamond shop, and they etch everything. So every time I find a video where they do it right and etch it before they put the epoxy on, I put it in the VW Garage Time video. So you can go over there and hear that from professional guys that fix cars for a living, why they use etch and you know, all that good stuff. But you know, that's your choice, whether you want to etch it or if you just want to put the epoxy on. The epoxy's what is the epoxy? It's a mechanical bond, and the etch is a chemical bond. So I'm going with the chemical bond to the steel. You don't have any failure that way. And I used epoxy for, oh God, 25 years before I had an issue with it. And boy, when it raises its head, it's ugly. And I had it go bad on about, I don't know, 100 cars. I worked at a real high volume shop. I did about 14 cars a day. And there's a couple guys that watch this channel that worked at the same shop, and they were painters there when all this bullshit went down, when they took the chromates out of the epoxy. Back when my dad used to use it all the time, it was some badass stuff. You could mix it up for a half hour there, let it induct. They had the 401 and the 402. 402 was the rapid hardener, and then the 401 was the slow. You know, if you're doing a resto and you wanted to get around the whole car, you use the 401. And then we used the 402 in the production in the shop. The guy I worked for, he wanted epoxy on everything we primed. So we'd have to put epoxy down first and then primer over the top of it. And unfortunately, my cars were the first one to come back, and I got the clipboard to the chest. It was not a good day. I came in and I had about 14 cars out front with big, hairy ass brown bubbles popping out of them. You know, it looked like the hardener and the epoxy didn't gel together or mix, but it did mix. You know, I let it induce and sit there, and you know, we used to mix it in the morning, and we'd go around and prime all our cars. And but anyway, I was the first one to get it back, and shortly after, like 2 days later, when I was going through all my cars, getting my job threatened, and you know, people were wanting to know what I mixed wrong and all that shit. And when you do this stuff for a long time, you don't mix stuff wrong. You end up using cups, especially when you work for somebody. There's no reason not to use a cup or a stick, you know. It's just it's to your advantage to make sure that it's mixed properly. But my boss wasn't having none of that. It was my fault. I was going to pay for it out of my paycheck, and you know, I was a hack. So about 2 days later, the other painters, they got about 40 cars back, because there was 2 of them, so they produced a lot more than I did. And boy, the shit hit the fan. And PPG came in and paid for every one of the cars. And what it was they had reformulated it. They took the chromates out and went to the new what is it, LF whatever they say it is. I don't know the exact part number for it, but yeah. So I had that happen to me there, and I didn't use it for a long time, and I went funny car racing, so I got out of the paint and body business. And when I painted cars in California, the funny cars, they do things a lot different than we do here, so I use completely different materials. And when I came back home, I started doing little things, and I ended up buying the Matrix dealership. And I used to use the epoxy quite a bit because I saw a lot of guys online using it, so I got back in the habit of using epoxy on everything. And I had a black hood, and it was a used car. I used the epoxy as a sealer. And I painted the car, clear coated it. 2 days later, I was buffing it, and the buffer grabbed the paint and ripped it off the metal. The epoxy came right off, wasn't stuck, and it was a mess. And I haven't used it since. I use it when people request it, or I use it in a sealer, but I don't ever use it as a, you know, over bare metal, or depend on it to be any kind of foundation. It's just, it's not what I like. I like the feather fill, or the you know, the high build sprayable Bondo type stuff, polyester primer, you know, like Matt uses. That's okay. That's like putting Bondo over bare steel, and you know, you can do that. And Evercoat, you know, they say you can put it over bare metal, or you can put it over etch. It's an option, however you want it, whatever you're comfortable with. But yeah, so I don't get into the epoxy debate too much, but I will tell you, if you use Matrix, it has to be etched. There's a little asterisk when you go into the manual. Not on the can. It's not on the can. It's not in the salesman's head behind the counter, because that guy's never applied paint in his life. And they usually don't know too much. They just sell what's popular. And epoxy primer is one of those things that does 3 jobs in one. So if you're a store, you know, it's great to have on the shelf, because it's a great solution for crowded inventory. You know, you can make sealer out of it, you can make a primer out of it, or you can use it for, you know, well, I don't know what else, but, you know, people seem to love that stuff, is all I can say. And all I know is I painted cars for 25 years. I was a painter. I'm certified in PPG, Diamond, Matrix, Standox, and there's a few other that I think I'm forgetting about. I'm ICAR certified. I've taken every class you can take when it comes to paint. I've been to Michigan before. I've been to the plant. I've been to the PPG plant. I've been to the Diamond plant. And every one of those paint lines I've ever sprayed, there was etch primer. So I find it hard to believe that they've eliminated etch primer from the planet and you don't need it anymore. And I've heard some people tell me that they have the corrosion protection and some of the etch built into the epoxy now. And that's cool. I still haven't seen a sheet yet though. And I'd really like to see one of those, a sheet, some paperwork, something, you know? Something. Show me something. If somebody's selling you that shit and you're putting it over bare steel, you should be completely confident that it's going over bare steel and you'll never have an issue. There should be some sort of paperwork, you know? Some sort of catalog. I've showed you ours before. I've showed you the asterisk. I've showed you to read the footnotes, because that's where the good stuff is. You can read the instructions almost 3 or 4 times, and if you don't notice that little asterisk and go to the bottom of the page, you'd never know that you need to let it sit for 30-minute induction time, and then it has to be put over the top of etch primer. So this one's covered a lot. We've rambled on and made this real long, and let me shut up, put the screw back in my jack, and let you guys get on with your day, and hope everybody has a good one.